big news day for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The end of the season news conference. I always look forward to the end of the season news conference. Boy, is that fun. Man, is that fun. So end of the season news conference happened on Thursday. Among the highlights, you had the Pittsburgh's coach, Mike Tomlin, saying that he will be back, and he was in a chipper mood and all that. He also said, Tomlin, that the plan entering the offseason is for Kenny Pickett to be the club's quarterback number one. QB1, starting quarterback for Kenny Pickett. So there's an endorsement. Well, not quite. Not quite. Because while Tomlin said that Kenny Pickett would be the number one quarterback, you got to read the fine print. Well, here's Mike Tomlin. Listen to Tomlin explain the fine print part of Kenny Pickett. Let's go to the audio tape. Take a listen.
Can he resume his QB1 status?
He will, but obviously there will be competition. There's always competition in this thing. We don't anoint anyone. Man, I'm appreciative of his efforts and where he is and excited about continuing to work with him. But certainly he will be challenged from a competition perspective moving forward. Competition brings the best out in all of us.
Yeah, that's why Andy Reid always brings in another quarterback to compete with Mahomes, and Joe Burrow's got real competition there for the starting job in Cincinnati, and Josh Allen's got those quarterbacks breathing down his neck in Buffalo because clearly that's what everyone does who has a good quarterback. Hello? All right. Well, fine. So at this point, Tomlin also said that the Steelers want Mason Rudolph to be back. I'm sure he was lying when he said that. There's no guarantee he's a free agent. The Steelers generally, my life anyway, don't spend any money in free agency of any note. They'll sign a couple of secondary free agents, but they don't sign the big-name free agents. So let us discuss the question. How should Kenny Pickett feel about the Steelers bringing in competition? The quote from Mike Tomlin, obviously there will be competition. So I've got Bo Nose, Spinning Butter, and Governor. And we'll combine all of these things together, and we are going to make a big bucket of popcorn to celebrate National Popcorn Day.
Get your popcorn ready.
Yeah, big popcorn. So, all right, number one. Yeah. Kenny Pickett, he should be like Tom Brady, deflated. That's what he should be. He was given the keys to the Steeler Kingdom. He was given the opportunity, and he has pulled the old fumble-rooski. Fumble! Yeah, he fumbled it away. That's not completely gone yet, but the ball is in the storage drain. It's in the sewer. And Pickett ended up being unable to get it done. And that's the problem, right? It's a performance-based business unless you play for the Cowboys, and then your performance doesn't matter. But Kenny Pickett ended up on the naughty list because he let his play do the talking. It is a regression versus progression, and you have to show signs of improvement. Again, unless you're Dallas, then it doesn't matter. But Bo knows, right? Bo knows. The famous quote from Bo Schembechler, you probably don't even know who that is. He was a longtime college football coach at Michigan. But one of his famous quotes, he said, every day you either get better or you get worse. You never stay the same. And Kenny Pickett got worse. He was a jag. But as we say, not a Jacksonville Jag, just a guy, not a difference maker. He was drafted to be a difference maker. And the biggest indictment of Kenny Pickett was the fact that closed the regular season, he got hurt. He came back, he was healthy, and Mike Tomlin had him as a healthy scratch at the end of the season, replaced by Mason Rudolph, the red-nosed quarterback, because he had a hot hand. That's a soft way of giving you a dishonorable demotion. Dishonorable, not discharge, but demotion. Discharge comes later. Now, I have some Maller advice, unsolicited Maller advice. Now, I am not a terrible towel owner. I'm not. I've been to Pittsburgh. I had a good time when I was there, but I'm not a Steeler fan. My advice is the Steelers should forget Mason Rudolph and think outside the lines. I think outside lines. And take a flyer on Justin Fields. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Justin Fields, but I would rather have him and take a shot with him, Justin Fields, whose upside is higher than Mason Rudolph. And you can get Justin Fields for a song and a dance at this point. The Bears, I know that people are talking about him being traded for a bunch of draft picks, but Justin Fields has sucked for the last 2 years. He hasn't done anything of great other than sporadic performances. So you're not going to have to pay that much to get Justin Fields. And if you do, who cares if you think he's going to be good? But I'd put him in there, and one of those two guys. Maybe Pickett has a come-to-Jesus moment, and Fields figures things out. And then you hit pay dirt. You find a jackpot with one of those guys. Now, of course, Fields has his own issues. But, again, change of scenery guy, I'd rather have that than Mason Rudolph. Now, page 2. After much consternation and deliberation, Mike Tomlin has said that he's happy there in Pittsburgh. He's open to an extension with the Steelers. So what does that tell you? After Tomlin ran away after the Steelers lost their playoff game in Buffalo. So it tells you that he is human, Mike Tomlin. We believe that Tomlin was questioning his pigskin mortality in Western Pennsylvania. He took a deep breath. He was spinning butter. You don't storm off the stage when asked a question that you knew was coming about your job status, which everyone's been talking about in the football media, unless you're doing some self-examination. Didn't last long. He decided, okay, I'll come back. At least that's what he's saying now. And the other thing I know from just being an adult and having a job for a long time is if the people you work for want to give you more money, if your employer says, I would like to give you, the employee, more money, how do you say no to that? And these coaching contracts are guaranteed. So in the coaching world, that's your golden parachute. I'll take a 10-year extension. I don't care. I'll quit whenever I want. You got to pay me a percentage of the money. And I'll leave a job, get a bougie no-show consulting job like Pete Carroll, although Pete didn't want to leave the job in Seattle. All right, final point. We head now to the land of speculation. What would have happened in a parallel dimension had Carolina drafted CJ Stroud instead of the Houston Texans? And if they'd taken CJ Stroud in Carolina over Bryce Young as the number 1 overall pick in the 2023 draft, what would have happened? Would have been different? Would Stroud have been as good? Would Bryce Young have lit up the scoreboard in Houston? So one NFL executive buried behind a paywall at the Old Gray Lady, The Athletic, said that Houston has a better situation. Okay, Captain Obvious. If you drop Stroud in Carolina, the unnamed NFL executive said, would he have had the same success? No way in hell, close quote. So could CJ Stroud have succeeded with the Panthers had Carolina gone this direction? So there is a way in hell. I mean, I've not been to hell. I might be on the highway to hell, but I've not been to hell, and I'm pretty sure there's probably a way there somewhere. But I'm going to go, yes. CJ Stroud, see, here's where I disagree with a lot of the people in the NFL. I know coaching and environment is very important. When I was a kid, there was this guy named Bill Walsh who was the 49ers coach, and he used to talk about how it takes a village to raise a quarterback and some version of that quote. That's true, but I am a believer in all sports. If you can play, it doesn't matter where you are. You're not going to win per se, but you're going to ball out. And would CJ Stroud have won a lot of games for Frank Reich in Carolina? No, maybe not. But he would have showed more than the guy that Carolina got. Because Stroud is good. He's got a fire in his belly. And the quote is more of a naked bootleg. The way I process this comment from the unnamed NFL executive, it is akin to a governor issuing clemency papers for Bryce Young. Bryce Young sucked from head to toe. There's no need to sugarcoat it. He appeared to be completely overmatched. He looked like he was too small to play in the NFL. And there also is a bit of revisionist history because doing this show every day and having no life outside of this show, I pay attention to a lot of this stuff. If you look at the scouting and the analysis before the NFL season, the belief was that Bryce Young was in a better situation, that nobody knew whether this guy in Carolina or in Houston, rather, could coach or not, right? They had a rookie coach, rookie quarterback. Talent-wise, Carolina was supposed to have the better offensive line. The Texans didn't have a lot at wide receiver. And so now we're like, well, no one could win in Carolina and all that stuff. But side by side, the Pepsi Challenge, you would say Carolina going into the year was the better team, but ultimately we know how it played out. And the other thing is we'll never know. It's one of those things that we'll never have the answer to unless we can go to the Twilight Zone and we can go into other dimensions, because there is a dimension. Well, there's a couple dimensions. There's one dimension where Carolina drafted CJ Stroud. There's another dimension where the Bears didn't trade the pick and they drafted CJ Stroud. How would that have worked out in Chicago? So there's all kinds of different versions in these different dimensions, and we just have to find our way into those dimensions.